Bismillah. See, usually I'm good. I'm good with words, usually. And I know how to articulate myself, how to conduct myself, what to say, all in my head, usually. But I have many thoughts in my head, and there was a video I was going to do on my YouTube that I haven't posted in years because I've been busy with the bridge, I've been busy with business, I've been busy with traveling back and forth. So many things of life that I haven't had the time to actually dedicate to my own page, which I was planning to this year. But with the death of Abdul Lateef, some may know him as Kevin, some may know him as Healthy Mindset, some may know him as the brother that was always around Joshua, as he was obviously a personal trainer of his, died yesterday on the 29th of December in Nigeria in a car crash, which was gruesome to say the least. And the videos going around by some people, which I just think is so disrespectful, soulless, self-seeking, I don't know, fame, God knows, but you can record something and keep it to yourself, and you can record something and show it to the world. And whenever you do anything in life, you have to really ask yourself, what was your intention? What was you seeking from showing the world of his splattered head on the floor? Like, what was you seeking? Maybe the mum sees that, the dad sees that, the brothers, this is like, don't you think when you make these videos, who's gonna see it? The shock that it's gonna have, that it's gonna stay in someone's memory. Like, I have so many thoughts on my head, and I'm trying to hopefully bring it out in a way that is coherent, but at the same time, forgive me, because when the emotions are high inside, it's very difficult to Habibi afwan. Wallahi ma indi al-yawm. Yeah? And that is life. You have a little kid coming to my window. I'm in Egypt, as you know, asking for money. I actually don't have no money to give him. But where do I start? The video I was gonna make was gonna be about this year anyway. 2025 has been my most difficult year I have ever known. I've been to prison for over, I don't know how many years. If I put it all together, probably 5 years or so altogether. And I've been through in prison knife fights, to fist fights, to a whole wing against me. I've been in the block for many weeks on end, which is where you have no TV. You don't see anyone apart from 15 minutes of having a phone call and a shower. I've been to all the way Portland. I've been to, you know, far areas anyway I can't mention. I've been to many far places that the only people that was around were foreigners. To me anyway, because I'm a Londoner. Irish people, you know, Liverpool people, all these people that stick together. I'm in those prisons. I've been on the streets where I've been chased with guns, I've been chased with knives, etc., etc. Life and death situations. I rarely ever speak about, unless there is of some form of benefit that I can, you know, reap for someone to benefit from. I don't really like to talk about, oh, well, this happened and that happened, because it just comes across as you're glorifying your lifestyle. But I say that all to say that none of them was as difficult as I saw this year. And I don't know, to some maybe that was the most difficult thing that have ever happened to them, going to prison and not seeing their family for many years. You know, nearly being killed. All of these situations, to some others, that might be the most difficult thing in their life. But for me, that wasn't. This year, and all of the things that have happened have made it the most difficult year I can remember. And it might be short-term syndrome, whatever, I don't know. Or short-term memory syndrome, sorry. But if I start off this year, early this year, or just before the year, my dad found out he had colon cancer. Now, me and my dad, we've got a weird relationship, which is I met my dad when I was 8 years old. And actually, I knew him before I was 8, but it was hard to remember. It was in Ethiopia, maybe around 4 years old. And we met after the war because I was born in 1989 in a civil war between the North and the South. And so I didn't know my dad for the first 4 years of my life. I met him. I rarely remembered him at 4. And when I met him back at 8, it was a strange relationship. So by the time I met him, he's my father, but I'm already 8 years old. And in the Somalian culture, you're already a man because you've done so many things at a young age back home. You're responsible. You've seen so many issues. You're already a big boy, really. But anyway, I met him and he wasn't the easiest of relationship, and it's a father without no mother there. He hasn't got a wife. So it's a very strict environment and it's all boys in our house. There was 8 of us in a house of 4 bedrooms and only one woman who was in our house, which was our auntie. And to be fair, my grandmother. So it was a tough upbringing. Not one that I have any traumatic stories to tell, apart from a natural Somalian culture, which is one of beatings. If you got, a bad letter from school, if I got into a fight, I'll get a beating. But this is norm back home, so I'm not here to knock any of my previous culture and what they've done. Is it wrong? Of course it is, but this isn't the story for that. I only give you a backdrop to tell you my dad's relationship. And so my point is, it wasn't the most loving relationship, but I knew my dad loved me. I know he was beating me for the things I done wrong personally. He wasn't beating me for the sake of just beating me. I'd done things wrong. I was beating people up. I was fighting. I was getting excluded from school, etc., etc. So, but I always had love for my dad. And after many years, he gave up on me. He just said, you know what? This guy's not listening. He's starting to get arrested. He's been a gangster. I wash my hands off you. And he went back to Somalia. And so fast forward many years. I've been in prison for many years. I've come out. I've tried to change my life. I've been married. I've got kids now, business, etc. Obviously, I found out through my cousin, I believe, that, look, your dad might have cancer. And I spoke to my dad. And that was probably one of the first times I felt his vulnerability. As I'm speaking to him, I felt a sense of fear in him. So I said, Dad. And he didn't want to come back. I said, Dad, you got to come back. He said, look, son, if I've got to go, I've got to go, And I don't want to get too emotional on it. But anyway, I got to him, I said, look, Dad, if you're not living for yourself, then you've got grandkids and you've got sons that you've got to live for. And just on that basis alone, you need to come back and deal with it. And that's what happens with us men. Sometimes we're too strong for our own good. Yes, of course, I'm sure he could have just held it down and died. I'm sure he probably would have done that. But there's other people to live for in life. There's people who care for you, think of you, and have a soft spot for you, that, as selfish as it is for them to think of you like that, they want you to live for them as well. And so I say this story so that it can capture someone else's life that's probably going through some form of madness in their own life, cancer, depression, wife leaving them, husband leaving them. They're in the pits of all of the disasters that they can think of. I'm here to say, you know what? If not live for yourself, live for those who love you. If you don't want to live for yourself, as selfless as it sounds, live for those who have love for you and want you to live. And so he came back and we went through, going to hospital together every other week. And it was a difficult time because, I didn't know if he was going to make it or if he was not. We found out it was like 80%. The colon cancer was 80% of his rectum. So only through 20% he was actually going toilet. So it looked serious. I think they even said he was stage 3, etc., etc. By the will of Allah, alhamdulillah, within a year, he's gone through all his chemo, all his therapies, and he's doing better. He's got a bag right now, and he's doing well. So that's one issue that I've had this whole year. At the same time of that, for 6 months, I didn't see my kids. I live for my kids. I live for my mum. I live for my brothers. I live for my friends. I live for my people. That's just who I am. For 6 months, I didn't see my kids. And not because I couldn't, but I didn't want to leave my dad in the UK by himself, even though he had brothers and family with him. I wanted to be there with him in case anything happens. You never know. On top of that, you know, my marriage I've had for over 13 years now hit its lowest point, and we was practically divorced. For 6 months, I didn't speak to my wife really. She was doing her life, I was doing my life. I had the issue with my dad. You know, I had the issue, which I'm going to get to, business. There was just so many layers of difficulties that also became the least priority for me, dealing with a marriage issue. That I'm not going to get into all the details, but it was not a nice environment, and it was easier at that time to let that go and to just concentrate on what was life and death, which was my dad. So you have the cancer, you have not seen my kids, you have the marriage issue. On top of that, my business, which I had been doing for 8 years, my construction business, Xperi, which I started from scratch, I had to close down because this client didn't pay me 20, 30K. That client didn't pay me 20K. That client didn't pay me 9K. I had all these clients not paying me, and I had to let go of some people that was with me for so many years. And the thing about running a business, which those of you who run a business may be able to resonate, it becomes more about the people that you're supporting, which I'm talking about now, my employees, than it does about me and me making money. I was so conscious now, but I need to get the next job. I need to, because this person works for me and that person works for me, and they've got family that they're relying on to pay. And if I don't get it, then they're not going to be able to pay their rent, and this person's not going to be able to go here. But all this time, my family, my kids, my mum, my wife, all of these people who rely on me are living a hard life, and they're asking for money, and they need this and they need that, and this rent needs to be paid, and all of this is happening also in my background. And so you got to make a decision, and that decision in essence was really made for me, because if it was me, I would have just kept on going and going and going and going. That's just my character. My character is one of just keep going. But the decision was made for me because I couldn't do anything. The finances wasn't coming through. The big jobs I'm finishing off, I'm in debt now because the client owes me money. I can't pay the people that are my subcontractors because this person is paying. So I've got people that I know now that I'm having to owe money to, and I'm in debt to, and I have to find money from somewhere to pay them. So the business is an issue. And then I invested probably about 3 years ago when money was going very well. I had hundreds of thousands of pounds coming in from big contracts. I had money on the side, so I invested in Egypt and I bought 3 properties, which I didn't own outright, but I put a lot of deposits down and I was paying it off monthly, and I was doing well with it for about 2-3 years. But again, this year, 2025, because of all of these issues that had a knock-on effect, I started missing one payment, then another payment, then another payment, and I've got debts here and I've got debts there. I've had to, by now anyway, I had to let go 2 of those properties, sell it back and make a loss of about 20 grand and got some of my money back. So I'm dealing with that issue. And by now, it's easier to now obviously talk about it a bit more, but when you're in all of these issues, I've never had a heart attack, and inshallah I never will. But there was this feeling of my heart being like squashed and squeezed every other day from so many different pressures. And some people watching this that are my friends and family members might think, well, I didn't know any of this stuff. And I don't know, this is it's a bittersweet kind of one, because it's like, should you tell people about all your problems? But not everyone is willing to help you in your problems, and you feel the same way if someone says no to you. So I never really asked for help. I just carried on. 1 or 2 people asked for a little loan, I can pay them back, and I have, alhamdulillah, and I'm grateful forever. And they know who they are, you know, in the darkest moments, last penny, didn't really want to ask. and I've asked 1 or 2 people and they came through and I've paid them back. And, you know, there's some others I still owe money to. But yeah, so I had to let go of those 2 properties. And then, alhamdulillah, there was some silver linings, you know, money coming back now because I sold those properties. And I've been back in Egypt now for about 3 months with my family and, you know, digging down time with them and spending quality time with them. So good things have been happening. And then now the icing on the cake of yesterday, the 29th of December, of hearing of Abdul Lateef's death in the most gruesome of ways, just made me come to a few conclusions, which I already have come to, but now this has just solidified it for me to strike while the iron is hot. And that's why I'm making this video. For those people who are mourning, have cried, are still crying, are going through the pains that they're going through because of their relationship with Abdul Lateef and other brother, which I sadly don't know. Death happens. It's going to happen to every single human being there is on this earth. The most certain thing in this world is death. Nothing is more certain than death. And in his death, the one thing I'm gonna put out here today, and that's why I'm saying I'm gonna make this video today instead of 2 weeks time or months time, I was gonna dedicate it to myself to change and to do better, but I'm gonna dedicate it to Abdul Lateef. Obviously, it goes without saying, everything in life is dedicated to the creator. For those, you know, you're always gonna get these flipping stupid people making comments, yeah, but God. It goes without saying, whoever knows me, I dedicate everything in my life to God first, obviously. But I'm gonna dedicate it to myself and to Abdul Lateef in his memory, because he was a strong person. That I'm gonna stick to my fitness. I've always been a yo-yo guy with fitness. I can get a bit hinged, then get a bit fat, then get a bit skinny. I've had a yo-yo with gym. But because of his character when it came to working out, I don't want his death to be in vain for those who know him and those who don't know him. I'm gonna dedicate it to consistently until I pass away, inshallah. To be consistent by the will of Allah in fitness and being fit and healthy internally and externally. No point looking good, hench, and you're smoking and you're overeating and you got cholesterol and diabetes and all of this stuff, but you look the part. It don't make no sense. That's one thing. Another thing about this brother, that for those who know him, is he always smiled. Whenever you met him, he was a smiling character. And for those who know me, I'm usually a screw-faced character. So I'm gonna try, even now, as hard as it is, I'm gonna try smiling far more in my day in, day out life, as much as I can, and with all the difficulties that are in the world, to smile more. He was also known to be a person who dresses very well, Allahumma barak. You know, anytime you saw him, he dressed, yeah, like put together. So again, I'm gonna try my best, because sometimes I come out looking, I don't know if you can see, I come out looking however, because I'm a person, I don't watch what anyone tells me, good or bad. I'm me. But I'm gonna do my best to spend more time in the wardrobe, dressed nice and good. I make this video to make people out there watching today, when you see someone dying, yes, of course, mourn, cry, be upset, do all of that stuff. But mourn and use his death as a vehicle, as a energy, as a motivation to change. Death is a reminder. Death in itself is the biggest reminder you're ever gonna have. There is nothing that tops death. So use his death as a vehicle to change your life around. If you smoke, quit. If you're fat, lose weight. If you are a cheater and are cheating on your wife or your husband, quit that and become a loyal character who is connected to their creator. If you're an atheist and agnostic, Turn back to the Creator who created you. Look up in the sky, look up into the mountains, look at your own skin, look at your own eyes and ears and hands, and comprehend life, like contemplate life and think about how did this all come about. It didn't just come about by accident. It came about by some intelligence. Use this as a reason to connect back to your Creator. If you're a Muslim, a Christian, whatever, someone who already believes in God, then make this a time to return back to your Creator properly. And if you're a Muslim, because I'm a Muslim, I don't want to disrespect other people, hence why I brought about the other religions, because we are a people who are monotheistic as much as we can, and I'm not going to get into no division right now. But as Muslims, and we see the brother's death, make this be a U-turn to the Creator first and foremost. If you're not praying, start praying. You don't know when you're going to go. Wallahi, you don't know if tomorrow is coming, if today is the last day, if the moment you leave your house and say bye-bye to your wife and kids or husband is going to be the last minute you see them. The most important thing you can do as a Muslim is connect to the one who has created you before you go back to him. If you're already praying and you're doing well, mashallah, hijab, whatever, you can do more. Pray at night times, give sadaqah, charity. And that's another thing I was going to say, I forgot. I'm going to start in his name a charity. I've always wanted to start a charity, but I'm going to start one. On his name, we got the same name anyway. That's the beautiful thing, as Abdul Lateef. And I'm going to start something that is of benefit to society, that I'm going to allow people to fish rather than be their fisherman. I've always had this concept of having a charity, of building and helping others. Because of my background in building, I'm going to do that by the will of Allah as well. Charity key. But I want to finish off this by saying I'm going to be back on my YouTube to promote life, Islam, charity, business, self-development, you know, consciousness of self and emotion, becoming a better person, because I'm far from a good person. I have many bad issues that my kids could tell you and anyone close to me could tell you. But I'm also a person who reflects, who knows my weaknesses, who's willing to accept when I'm wrong, who's willing to change day in, day out. And I hope to die in a manner that is pleasing to my Creator first and foremost, and that I am remembered in a way that tells and shows the world I only wanted good, and that I tried my best whilst on this thing that we call Earth. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next podcast that I hopefully make in the new year, and whenever I hopefully get to it. But I'm definitely, if I don't get into a podcast, I'm going to at least, at the minimum, try to post on YouTube once a week for as long as I can. Forgive me for any mistakes I've made on this video. Anything I've said that's good is from my Creator. Anything negative and emotional that I have said is from me. And with that being said, it's your brother Abdul Lateef. Have a good day, and remember, life is passing and fleeting, and enjoy it and do the best that you can, and be forgiving and be kind. Wassalamu alaikum.